I want to invite you to listen to our annual Halloween episode of GhostBox Radio on Halloween. We're going to have an epic 4-hour broadcast from 7 to 11 p.m. live at the beautifully haunted 300 Clifton Mansion. In fact, why not come out to the mansion to take part in person? All night, the mansion will be offering trolley tour rides, psychic readings, live music, and you can even take part in the ghost hunt we're doing in the mansion live on the air. It's going to be energetic, fun carnival atmosphere. Check out ticket options to join us in person at minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. If you can't come out in person, you can still listen to us or watch us live on Facebook from 7 to 11 p.m. on Halloween, where we'll be doing a live paranormal investigation and so much more. You can stream it live on am950radio.com, watch it live on AM950's Facebook page, or better yet, join us in person at the 300 Clifton Mansion. Ticket information is at minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. Greg Bakun here. Like many of you, I still collect physical books, and not just any books, but books about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. I go to Megas Books and Herbs, located in the Arts District of Minneapolis, but books are only part of it. Megas Books and Herbs offers crystals, jewelry, herbs, oils, and consultations on how to use this stuff. Check out their in-store classes and events too. This place has everything to expand your horizons. Located at 1848 Central Avenue, Minneapolis, or visit megasbooks.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this Tuesday evening, as we are just 2 days out from our huge Halloween broadcast over at the 300 Clifton Mansion. It's going to be pretty crazy. It's 4 hours of us doing all sorts of things, doing a live paranormal investigation. We're doing a special episode of Myth or Mystery that night. We have Ghost Inspector Greg. He is going to be out in LA. He's going to be coming in every once in a while with some special haunted stuff that he's doing out there. And then, of course, like I mentioned, we have our investigators. We're going to have Shar, Lisa, and AJ. They're going to be in the house. There's going to be people in there with them to do some investigation. In fact, you could be one of them. If you want, go over to minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. You have the option to take part in this investigation in the house during the broadcast. You don't have to necessarily know anything about paranormal investigating. You want to just see what it's like. You want to just take part in it, just experience the feel of it. There is no better place, no safer place than going out and doing that. Go over to minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. You can sign up for the investigation. You can sign up if you want to do trolley tours. You can sign up if you want psychic medium readings. I think it's almost like a seance over there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please, I will be talking about it over the next couple days. It's easier to just drown it out if you just sign up over at minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. We're going to do something different tonight. We're going to have a different sort of conversation than we've had before. And this is going to be one where I think that listeners, if you're watching us or if you're listening, I think you're going to have questions. And I think you're going to want to know more about this. I'm going to have on here Olivia James. And Olivia has written a couple books, Gray Mouse. And we're talking tonight about first book, Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. And what we're talking about here is not only what the government can do to people, are they making them into agents, but also, as Olivia and I talked about prior to the start of the program, what about the government and the occult? And what we're talking about tonight is Olivia's own, her own experience in everything that she talks about. This is not fiction. This is something that she's experienced and gone through. And I don't expect that we're going to get through it all in one show, but this is really interesting. Olivia, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, I mean, I guess we just start from the beginning. I mean, first of all,
Okay.
you have this book that's available on Amazon, Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. There's a second one as well.
Yes.
But there is what is the purpose behind writing the book? Let's just go to the beginning of the story here.
Yeah, the purpose of writing my books is, for one, to get the information to everyone, because I think we've all been in the dark too long, and especially not knowing what had happened to me until later in life. I think it's super important for the world to know that these things are happening, not just to adults, but a lot of it to children, because it starts in childhood. They
Okay.
start programming people in childhood. And it's
And
still going on. It's just under different project names, things like that.
so what we are truly talking about here is programming people by the government to do basically the will of the government.
Yes, MK Ultra.
MK Ultra.
Yes.
Okay, and is that the name of the program that this would be under?
That's what we usually call it, is MK Ultra, which is basically means mind control.
Okay. Wow. Incredible. I was talking last night with some friends because we had on Dr. Roos talking about his alien abduction, and we were talking about certain things, and I had mentioned, because they want to do a bigger program, and I'd mentioned I should try to get somebody who I know who used to work for the government and that they had actually been to Mars, and I think it's actually more of almost remote viewing than anything. What happened? What happened with you?
Okay. If I can, I'd like to start at the beginning, just so people can get an
Please do.
idea of how I got, pushed into this kind of. So
Absolutely.
I always start by saying that I had really interesting parents. Um, in the 60s and 70s, my father, he was recruited very young as a teenager into military intelligence, and he worked on the German-Russian border. He was a code breaker, and he learned German in about 6 months. So he did intelligence at a very young age. So he was recruited for that. Just imagine some young poor kid being recruited for intelligence in such a important time. It's really interesting. So
It is.
when he came out of that, he ended up getting involved with what we consider now cartels, but in those days they didn't necessarily say cartel. They had other names for it. And if you know anything about the early endeavors of, and connections between the government and, drug trafficking, then you'll see that there was a lot, and it's public information. Anybody can research, the government's involvement in early drug trafficking. So he became like a major drug trafficker,
Hmm.
um, and moving very, very large amounts of heroin across the border.
Okay. Wow.
And so what happened, he was doing really well. My mom was actually helping him. She assisted him with the money laundering, and she also did drug trafficking too. They were doing really well for young people that young. And I was just a baby when a lot of this was going on. But he ended up getting addicted to his product, and he started to make a lot of mistakes. And you can't make mistakes when you're dealing with government agencies. That's not allowed.
Yeah.
So they started to try to scare him, and they were doing like these small raids on him, and they never really went full all the way. And it didn't get any better. As time went on, he just got worse. And so he was, missing drops or missing pickups, that kind of thing. That's not appropriate for them. So they ended up doing this big raid, and then they arrested him, and there was this huge public trial. It was so it can be proven. It was in the newspapers, there's court records, things like that. That can definitely be proven. But at the end of it, nothing really came of it, and because they dismissed everything and then just said they had the wrong person. After all this time of doing this
Wow.
huge trial, they just said, "No, we just wrong person," and ended up letting him go, and it gave him a government job. So they hired a known drug trafficker and heroin addict for something like that. which is really interesting too. But
Wow.
doing a lot of so I was going to talk about how I got to know some of the information. Obviously, from my mother's still alive, but my father's passed now. But the way I got a lot of the information is from my own dead father. So I found out that I could do some things under hypnosis that I had no idea that was even possible. I had no idea that anybody could do the things that I've seen myself do, witnessed myself doing. And so I got a lot of the information directly from my own dead father in the most details you can never think of. It's absolutely amazing how far you can go if you really have that ability. It was amazing to me. So that's how I've got a lot of the information from him about what happened. It was definitely from a dead person. So it's really interesting. So if
Wow.
anybody reads the book and you read that, there's actually a chapter on him and what happened. It's actually coming from him as a dead person, talking about how he got into, this lifestyle and how he felt and things like that.
Okay.
So, and what had happened is that in order for him to stay out of prison, because he was a coward, that he ended up having to, give something up, which was me. He signed me over to allow them to use me, and he was able to go free and whatever, thinking that he was living a normal life, you know. And
Mhm.
when I talked to him as a dead person, he said that he didn't really know everything, and that he wasn't allowed to ask them questions, and he couldn't tell what was wrong with me when, if they took me and then brought me back, he didn't know that was, what was wrong with me. So what had happened is that put me into like an MK Ultra program at the age of, I think it was about 6 or 7. And it was
And
at oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
and MK Ultra, because we talked about just before it started, the show started. MK Ultra means
Mind control. It's an
yeah,
early form. It was the
yep,
early name of mind control
right,
programming.
yep.
So, and obviously when I'm in these programs, we don't call it MK Ultra. We don't, it's just the term that we use now. But this particular program that they took me to was on the East Coast. It was at a psychiatric hospital, and it's no longer open, but this was a huge place. It was like a self-sustaining type hospital. So they had a lot of privacy. There was a lot of private wings that they could do things. And I was in a very private program with only one other boy, and his name was Jacob. And we were both the same age. And when I got there, the main programmer, which is really interesting, I think people would be interested to know that there are a lot more women doing these kind of like torture programs than we know about. And it was a woman. It was a woman.
No.
Um, and when I saw her, I didn't grow up with these types of people. These are not
Mhm.
the people that I grew up with. So she seemed very like kind of like ethereal and otherworldly when I saw her, very, I don't know, sophisticated and classy. I just had never been around those types of people. And so what they were trying to accomplish at this particular place was they were trying to do something called syncopated dissociation between me and this other child. So what they wanted us to do is to both pretty much dissociate at the same time and to see what would the impact be if that could be possible. So they were
Mhm.
utilizing what we consider systematic torture. So it would be like, it's almost like a preschool program. That's how messed up this is. They would change the activity about every 15 to 20 minutes to make you anticipate what was going to happen. And it would be a different thing. It would be physical, emotional, sexual, psychological torture, different methods of abuse and especially as children, that has a major impact on your psyche. And that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to kind of break down your entire psyche, create these pockets and holes in your own mind so they could retrain it and reprogram it. What we could call alters. That means
Mhm.
some people call it dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personality disorder. But in learning about myself, I see that it was, an impact from trauma. They create these pockets of space that can be rebuilt. And they would actually program some of these. And some of these are created on their own, but a lot of them were able to be programmed by some of these, what we consider like handlers.
Okay. Okay.
So they were doing a lot of that. They were using LSD, electroshock therapy, and a lot of hypnosis. And that was how they were able to see that me and this child could do things that probably other people weren't able to do, is through hypnosis. And we became, really good at going into a trance and dissociating. And actually they were able to see us kind of, well, we saw each other leaving the body in order to escape that pain and suffering that we would, kind of like our spirits would leave the body. And when I can see that happening, I saw the child, he was be running around the room, and that would be the only time that we could act like children, like real children, is when we were able to leave the body from that physical trauma, because they were trying so hard to figure out, what they could accomplish with torture. So these were kind of like the earlier programmings in the 70s, early 80s of trauma-based mind control.
And I'm sorry, you might have mentioned it. How old were you when this part was happening?
About 6 or 7.
Okay. All right. Wow.
So very young, very young.
Yeah.
And so what they ended up considering me and this other boy, Jacob, to be perfect assets. We took to the trauma, we took to the abuse, to the point where we didn't ask for anything anymore. We stopped. It's almost like you're not really that person anymore. So I didn't know if I needed anything. I didn't know that I needed to go to the bathroom, if I was thirsty, if I was hungry. You always wait for a command or a directive from somebody else to tell you need those things. So that's how much they can accomplish with this program, and totally destroying the person and building something else.
I'm sorry, what is the purpose of them doing this to you? Like, what is the end goal for them doing this to you at the age of 6? What are they hoping that you turn into?
The overall goal is power and conquest. To have power in this world and other worlds. They want power and conquest. And they continue all the time. There's people that have been in power for a long time and people who want to be in power. And it's a constant struggle. So they're utilizing children as they grow for various programs, projects, missions, jobs. What I particularly did, what they had me do as an adult, is a lot of corporate espionage.
Mm.
And that's where I kind of got the term gray mouse from, because it was a particular altar called Gray Mouse that they wanted to have a particular personality that could kind of go into places easily, not be seen, not make a lot of fuss. People wouldn't look my way a lot. I could just blend in to get the information, change it, steal it, change it, whatever they wanted us to do, and get back out. And that's how that kind of term kind of stuck with me, is that gray mouse.
Wow. I want to get in a break here. But why don't we do this? Why don't we get a break first? Because I want to kind of ask questions in the right order, I guess. And make sure that we're not jumping around too much, because I think it would be very easy to do. Let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to be continuing our conversation with Olivia James, and hopefully, Olivia, we can also talk about the government and the occult when we come back, and whatever else is on everyone's mind. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. Halloween is literally just around the corner, and I want to invite you to listen to our annual Halloween episode of GhostBox Radio on Halloween. We're going to have an epic 4-hour broadcast from 7 to 11 p.m. live at the beautifully haunted 300 Clifton Mansion. In fact, why not come out to the mansion to take part in person? All night, the mansion will be offering trolley tour rides, psychic readings, live music, and you can even take part in the ghost hunt we're doing in the mansion live on the air. It's going to be energetic, fun carnival atmosphere. Check out ticket options to join us in person at minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. If you can't come out in person, you can still listen to us or watch us live on Facebook from 7 to 11 p.m. on Halloween, where we'll be doing a live paranormal investigation and so much more. You can stream it live on am950radio.com, watch it live on AM 950's Facebook page, or better yet, join us in person at the 300 Clifton Mansion. Ticket information is at minneapolistrolleytours.com/Halloween. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. What you wear is important. It should be fun, creative, and expressive of your own personality. At Grady Gear Company, we believe that clothing is more than just fabric and threads. It's a form of self-expression and a way to stand out from the crowd. Grady Gear is more than just a clothing brand. We're a community. We're here to inspire and motivate you to embrace your true self. We are a locally owned small business who do custom clothing orders too. Find us at GradyGearCompany.com. This Wednesday on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, tune in for one-question readings with the highly acclaimed psychic medium, Refined Divine, who can answer questions about love, life, and connecting with past loved ones. Get a potentially life-changing reading by calling.
I can answer the question I've had all my life.
Delve into the exceptional talents of Refined Divine at refinedivine.com and experience her live Wednesday at 10 p.m. for psychic medium Refined Divine on GhostBox Radio. And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Before we get back to Olivia James, I do want to remind folks this is incredibly wonderful weather outside at the moment, and I would really suggest take the most of it. Go out to Lilliput over in Coon Rapids right now until November 2nd. So October 31st through November 2nd, they're doing what's called Haunted Glow Golf. So it's a Halloween themed. A lot of stuff is glowing. It's I've seen pictures of it. Go online, take a look. It's really very cool. It's I mean, how many times do we get Octobers that are as warm as this? Go check it out. They also have a Haunted Mansion escape room. For the Haunted Mansion escape room, you do need to make a reservation on. For the Haunted Glow Golf, you do not, but go check it out. Go to lilliput.net. So that's LILLIPUTT.net. Check it out for yourself and just, and make the most of this wonderful weather. And I think it's a great way to go out on a date, to just spend time with the family, whatever else. So once again, go over to Lilliput in Coon Rapids. We are having our conversation with Olivia James. Her book is called Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. And, I've seen some comments and stuff. And Olivia, what do you tell people when they're saying, like, they don't believe what you're saying? They don't believe what you've gone through. They don't believe any of this. How do you respond to that?
I say the real world is more hidden than you realize.
Mhm.
That's what I always say, because it's the truth, because it was hidden from me too. So, and I just think people should just, I wouldn't tell people what to do, but research yourself, look into things and see what you can find, because there is plenty to find. And maybe that
Mhm.
will be the turning point in our world, to see that there's things going on behind the scenes that we have no idea of.
Right. And I mean, because like I've said, I've had a couple people I've known that have like similar sort of like backgrounds in not like what you're talking about, but stuff that they're talking about that they've gone through that is it takes a little bit to get your head around. Why don't we put it that way?
Mhm.
And I would assume that if people don't believe you, that's no skin off your nose.
Yeah, I can't worry about that. If I'm trying to get this information out to the world, and I'm constantly obtaining new information, I can't worry that, that what they're going to say, because it's a mission for me.
So I'm going to ask some questions. I might jump if I might jump your narrative a little bit. I hope that's
Okay.
okay, or you just
Yeah,
put me
sure.
back in place. But are you still an agent?
No,
How did you get out?
we all, well, not all, but there's many of us. If I was put into retirement after my 20 years of service, I was placed into retirement. But before you're retired, they do have you sign a lot of paperwork, which pretty much you're consenting to, be used in this life and the next life. You've already consented to it, because you're
Mhm.
forced to sign papers anyway. And these signatures hold a lot of weight. People don't realize, they think everything's on computer and everything, but on some of these other off-planet sites, they're using signatures for everything, and they say it stands up in all courts. The forms that they have, they say stands up in all courts.
Now you set off planet,
Yes.
and I mean, like I told you before the the show as well, that the people I talked to also did off planet as well. So with that, Chuck asked the question, is this program that you're involved with, is it still happening?
Yes.
Are you not worried about coming out in public at all, even if you're disguising your identity?
Of course,
Uh,
we're always worried.
so what's the reason then for doing so?
Um, my dead father, he told me to burn the system down. He said, burn it down. He said to go out and tell everybody what they did and what they made us do. And I have to, like, I try to stay true to that, because if you had that from, if somebody else had that from their parent who passed away, I mean, it would be an important thing for them to say, that it was an important job to do.
So with that, I mean, and I suppose there's another side to it as well. And please know, I'm just asking questions
Yeah,
that
sure.
are coming to me. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I think
No,
there's
you're
another
good.
I think there's another side to it as well. Is like, I mean, you can go public as much as you have on it, but there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to think that you're insane or crazy or just trying to get attention, right?
Always, always. But I can't let that stop me from getting information. I hear it every day, so I've
Yeah.
kind of gotten kind of used to it. But I think if people really read the books, listen to all the stories, listen to, the different podcasts I've been on, I think they'll see that the information is extremely consistent that I offer. And I haven't there's and I would literally have to be a genius in order to pull this off. With as much information as I'm able to obtain for people, I would have to be a literal genius to pull this off.
So what one area that I mean, it's interesting because before the show we talked about stuff that we can and should not talk about, and you asked me about the government and the occult, and you wondered
Yes.
if I wanted to talk about that, and I'm just kind of like, absolutely, I do.
Right.
Can we talk about that, because this sounds like a very horrifying part of what you have been
Yes.
able to do and can still do.
Yes. So I have to, this is so important for me to talk about how they identified this in me. So when I was at the psychiatric hospital, even as a child, when they were using hypnosis and they would put like an acupuncture needle in our palm, we would lay our palms hand up. So they were trying to trigger us into a
Mhm.
trance by that. And we've learned how to do that. So what they found was some of the past lives I had had. And it's really interesting that they would even look at something like that. I don't know if they expected to find it or it was just a surprise, but they found some of the past lives I had, and that's how I got identified for this. So I just want to talk about those past lives just for a short moment.
Sure.
One of the past lives um, that I discovered is of an ancient past. And I remember seeing myself walking in this desert, and I was coming up behind somebody and they couldn't see me. And I kept, it was like a real fun thing for me. And I was giggling and laughing. And when I was walking up behind me, I could tell they were terrified because they couldn't see me. They didn't know what I was. And they
Mhm.
were trying to run. They had their sheep, in the trying to get back to the village and things like that. One of the sheep had gotten away. And I just loved doing that. It was because I had a past life as a dark entity, or what somebody would consider like a dark jinn.
Yep.
So, and we talk about those times. Well, me as my jinn self, I've talked to myself as a jinn self. So when we had those times, they were really, there was a very seductive time. So it was a whole different process when people needed those, what we call lower gods or trickster gods. And I don't know, people get angry when I call them gods or anything, but
Mhm.
that's just what they say. It's not my language. That's the language they use, that, these dark entities, that's the language they use. They call themselves gods.
Mhm.
So the, her basic process, this dark jinn, her name was Harlowen, she would, find somebody, a prey. She would infiltrate their life, start that whole oppression process, just, to tear away at them until they were ready to allow her to take over their body. And that's how she survived. She would travel by blood, though. She didn't like to become physical, because a lot of these, that's why you don't see a lot of the demons become physical. They mostly travel by energy. And she
Mhm.
particularly traveled as red energy, and almost like a parasitic entity traveling by the blood. So that's really interesting. I thought when she said that she traveled in the blood like a parasite. And I don't think people would think about that when they're thinking about demons.
Right.
So that was one life that they had identified. And then there was another where I was a psychic medium in 1400s in Italy, and I was in a village and I was helping a lot of people in the village that had lost their loved ones. I just wanted to let them talk to them. I thought I was doing something good. And when the Inquisition came around, they came to my house. Somebody had told them what they saw me do. They came, they punched me in the face, they dragged me off to like a dungeon and pretty much tortured me there. I didn't die at the stake, but I actually died from dehydration and starvation instead of being burned or any other type of torture. And I had like my hands hanging from a ceiling. So that image is like kind of like burned in my mind. I can still see it when I was hanging from the ceiling. But towards the end of that life, I was so angry because of what all these men had did. I called out to the darkness and I attached some of that darkness to me because nothing else had answered me to like kind of like, help me out of the situation. So that was a really traumatic death that I had in that. And there
Wow.
was one more past life that I had in the late 1700s, early 1800s. I can't pinpoint the exact time, but I had lived on the streets for a long time as a child, and I had traveled around. It was in the US, but I had traveled around. I didn't have any parents, and I was kind of like a street kid. And I ended up finding another person that was kind of like me. And in saying kind of like me, we both had this thing inside, this dark thing inside us that made us have these, I don't know, that other people didn't have to hurt other people. So we
Hmm.
would try to find a woman alone, and in those times you could find people out alone without any supervision or any partners or anything, and we would stalk prey like that and harm these people, and then we would keep traveling to the next village, and we would just did that we just constantly did that, just constantly, traveling and harming people. And then on the last day of our lives, we ended up getting caught because we went to a local pub. We had just assaulted somebody. We went to a pub and we started drinking with everybody, and they ended up finding the woman in the field. They knew it was us because we were the only new people in town. They knew it was us. We ran to this barn and we thought we were safe, but they ended up catching us in the barn. They locked the barn door. They locked the barn on us and they set it on fire. And I
Okay.
just remember at the end trying to climb up to try to get away from the heat, but that was the dumbest idea. That didn't work. And
Okay.
we deserved that. Whatever we got, we deserved it. So, you know,
Mhm.
and I was a male in that life. So that's really
Okay.
interesting. It
Yeah.
was really interesting for me to see these different lives and, things like that. So those are three of the past lives that got me identified for. So the main programmer, the woman, she was a psychiatrist. She referred me out to somebody else. So they ended up taking me to this man's office, and it looked like a lawyer's office. It didn't look like a doctor's office. I don't know. And this man was called Dr. Green. And I don't know for sure. I just only know him as Dr. Green, but a lot of people say that Dr. Green was another name for Mangala. I don't know for sure, but when I saw this gentleman, he was so old and frail, very, small with little wire rim glasses, and he was, really bald on the top. He didn't have any hair left.
Mhm.
So, but the thing is, I, you can just tell he didn't harm me, but I always describe him as being with a tiger in a cage, like that type of energy. Like
Sure.
he was, I couldn't
You never
tell as
know.
a child.
You never
Yeah,
know
I
when he's
couldn't.
gonna pounce.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. So as a kid, I was, very quiet and, kind of followed directions. But he had these two twins in his office, and they looked like they were, I don't know, had an albino condition or something. They didn't really talk a lot, but he gave them directions to give me kind of like an exam, I guess.
Mhm.
And so they started looking in my eyes and my ears, and they made me stick out my tongue and look in my mouth, that kind of thing. And I remembered they turned to him and they said, "We found it. We found the thing inside her." So they thought that I had some type of attachment, but
Mm.
they were wrong. What they were seeing was actually me because of my past life. It stays with you. It's in your cellular level. I
Mhm.
can't eliminate a past life. That I don't know anybody that's been able to do that. I can't eliminate it or delete it.
Right.
So they took me into a program called Project Traveler. And what that was is what I can do now is a hosting ability. So I'm what Miss Dr. Green called me something like a portal person. That means I can open a portal like within myself. It's not an external thing. So if I open the portal, other things can come in and take over the body and speak through me and, walk
You
around,
host
everything.
them. You host
Yes,
them.
that's why and actually a demon taught me that word. Because other people call it channeling. It's not channeling at all, because I'm letting them, they're actually taking over my body. I'm not just,
Mhm.
speaking with my eyes open. It's not like that. They're taking over my body. And I can even can walk around. It's basically a form of voluntary possession, because I'm allowing them to do that. So they took me into that program, and when I was they didn't really use me for that when I was a child, but more as an adult.
Mhm.
So what they were trying to accomplish, besides research, is they had a contracted agency that was subcontracting for services, and one of the services was this hosting ability. And they wanted to, so they would hire me, let's say, how do I explain this? Maybe what we would call elites. They
Okay.
like to hire people like me to come to their house, and they want me to do hosting for them, which would mean that, I would come there, and they would usually treat me pretty well, but they wanted me, to kind of let their God take over. And a lot of these people, what I found interesting was this one particular family. They had, particularly a cult to this particular entity called Bacchus, and they had discovered this entity way back in the 1500s. Their, ancestors or descendants had found this. That's how long they had this entity follow them. So it was
Mm.
what we consider like a generational of familiar entity, kind of. So it was their own god. So when they hired, they contract, and we didn't get paid for this, just so you know. None of us got paid for any of this stuff. We were forced. It's almost like slavery.
Got
You're
that.
forced to do all these services with no
Mhm.
question. You just have to do it all. So we would go to the house. I remember going to their house. They were treating me very well. There was another gentleman there that could do the same thing I do, and there was more people that could do it. I was just somebody that could do it very well. And so they would have us lay down, and they perform these types of rituals. And rituals aren't really needed, especially if you have a portal person like me. I don't need any rituals. I don't need words, anything to do this. So I think it's really interesting when there's, this talks about, you know, different, people that are into the occult and Satanists and things like that. They do these huge rituals to be able to talk to, demonic entities. You don't even need that. That's not even needed. I mean, a portal person,
Mm.
I can do it in 10 seconds. I would just have to count it down from 10, and I can allow it to happen.
Well,
So it's really interesting.
and when you think about it, I mean, how do you get a demon into your life? You invite them in. That's not a ritual.
Yes. And actually they told me, this is really interesting. The demonics told me that um I don't know, like a vampire legend saying that they needed to
Mm.
be invited in. It's from
Mhm.
them. They said that that's about them. They said
Mm.
they said in the beginning there was a huge barrier put up between their world and ours, so they couldn't travel freely, and they have to be invited into your space. And it said it's not from vampires, it's from them. And that's true, because even when I was a dark entity, I was waiting for them to allow me to take over. They would have to
Mhm.
invite me in. I couldn't just do it. But that's why that whole process of stalking and oppressing comes in, because you have to do that. And if you think about it in different, like, hauntings and things, that whole oppression phase, they have to keep tearing at you and then you would give up.
Yep. You're worn
Your
down.
psyche gives up, you give up and allow it to happen.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
really interesting.
Can we take another break, because we have to take our
Sure.
next break, and then we can finish up your experience with that, and make sure that we get to that, because I don't want to cut that off. And folks, if you have questions, please put them in the comments as well. We're talking with Olivia James. We're talking about her book, Gray Mouse, Sex Space, and Mind Control. We're also talking about her experience with the government and the occult. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Twin Cities Con returns to the Minneapolis Convention Center for their fourth year, November 8th through 10th. Twin Cities Con is a celebration of comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, and all things nerdy. There is nothing like Twin Cities Con. It's also a family-friendly event where you can meet your favorite celebrities, browse the vendor hall and artist alley for the coolest merch, watch celebrity Q&As, and even more. Twin Cities Con is bigger and better than ever before. Come see from Star Wars the Emperor himself, Ian McDiarmid, along with Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, John DiMaggio, who is Bender from Futurama, WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Sting, and Sunday only Grant Gustin from The Flash and Glee, plus more guests to be announced. 3 days of action-packed fun is in the heart of Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Tickets start at $40. Kids tickets are just $8 for the entire weekend. VIP tickets also available, including a 3-day weekend pass, plus some really cool VIP perks. Buy your tickets and get more information at TwinCitiesCon.com. Lilliput in Coon Rapids dares you to take part in their Haunted Mansion escape room. 100 years ago, a family suffered a tragic incident. Your team is brought in to find out what happened that night, find proof of the supernatural, and help the spirits find peace. Are you up for the task? This incredible escape room is filling up fast, so book now. Also, a perfect outing for work team building. Go to lilliput.net now to book your experience today. Greg Bakun here. Like many of you, I still collect physical books, and not just any books, but books about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. I go to Megas Books and Herbs, located in the Arts District of Minneapolis, but books are only part of it. Megas Books and Herbs offers crystals, jewelry, herbs, oils, and consultations on how to use this stuff. Check out their in-store classes and events too. This place has everything to expand your horizons. Located at 1848 Central Avenue, Minneapolis, or visit megasbooks.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Recently, I had a large order of custom designed t-shirts that needed to be turned around in a hurry. I knew exactly who to call. Grady Gear Company. Grady Gear Company is a local company that handles large and small custom clothing and apparel orders. I had a lot of questions from color, shirt quality, and what sizes we needed. Grady Gear Company was great to work with. They got us what we needed on time, and now everybody's looking great around the station in their new gear. Start your order at GradyGearCo.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll see the return of psychic medium Refined Divine. We're going to have her on tomorrow for one-question readings. That's always a lot of fun. It's a special pet edition. So if you have questions about Fifi or whatever your animal is, and you want to know whether they're living or not, how they're doing, what's making them upset with you, or try to get one from who have passed, tomorrow is a great opportunity for that. It's going to be, it's probably going to be fairly emotional, to be perfectly honest, as these are very, they can be very tough to bring back those little furry ones that we love and find out a little bit more about them. You can do, we could talk about pets tomorrow, but we also could talk about your own personal one questions that you want to have answered as well. So Psychic Medium, Refined Divine is going to be there tomorrow. And also don't forget, you can still sign up with her to get your own personal reading, which is far more advanced than just one question reading. Go to refineddivinepsychic.com and get all the information from there. And once again, folks, we're just a couple days away from the special 4-hour Halloween episode in Paranormal Investigation over to 300 Clifton. You can also join us in person, take part in the investigation yourself. Go over to minneapolistourleytours.com/Halloween, and you can go there. You can get just the graveyard pass, which is just access to the grounds and the live broadcast and everything else they have going on. That's just on the grounds. You can sign up for trolley tours, psychic media readings, paranormal investigations. There's a lot of great things that you can sign up for. And then join me tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be over on the Matt McNeil show around the 4:30 mark, and we're going to be talking about Thursday's broadcast. And it's a perfect time. If you've always wanted to be in a paranormal investigation, that is going to be the perfect time to go do that. So with that in mind, we are talking with Olivia James. We're talking about her book. Well, we're not really talking about her book, to be honest. Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. We're talking about the experiences that created the book. And where we left off, and Olivia, just so you know, we have about, I don't know, we have about 9 minutes left, 9 to 10 minutes left. And we were talking about the government and the occult. If those who remember have been listening to the program so far, that is it safe to say, Olivia, you've been used by the government
Yes.
a lot of your life we're and that is in areas that are far beyond what you would normally expect, stuff that far beyond than what we would have seen in like Alias or something like that.
Yes. There's
So
way more to it than people realize. There's way more to it. And I just want people to know the reasoning is because there's power. There's power behind the dark side, and they know that. So they're trying to harness that. They're trying to make things measurable. They're trying to, see what could happen. When I was a child at the psychiatric hospital, there was one time where they tried sensory deprivation and they wanted me to do this hosting while they did this. So they would put me in a dark room. It wasn't water or anything. Put me in a dark room, just, and left me there for 2 days, hooked up to an IV. And they wanted to see, what they could measure by me letting some type of entity take over my body to see what would happen, what would be the result. They sat watching in a different room. They wouldn't usually come too close, just because they didn't know. And nothing really out of the ordinary happened. But I thought it was really conflicting because the humans were the ones torturing me, and then these entities that were taking over my body were actually keeping me alive because they wouldn't give me any food or anything. And the entity, when it took over my body, was sustaining me. So you can see that can be very conflicting to like a child's mind. Like these humans are hurting me, and what I'm supposed to be considering evil is what's keeping me alive.
So I got to ask this, and folks, we may have to. We're not. There's no may about it. We're gonna have Olivia on if she'd like to come back on again and to go through this, because we're gonna take our time going through all this. But there has to be some kind of smugness with the government to think that they could have any kind of control over anything of any spiritual, any sort of spiritual entity, whether it's dark, light, or whatever. I mean, has that been have ever been talked about, a consideration or anything?
They are very arrogant. And actually, there's a particular entity named Isis, and she's actually made a big comeback, and she's presented herself as kind of like this lovely young goddess. And she told me that she wanted to thank everybody for bringing her back to life, because she said she is an angel, but she's an angel of darkness. And that she said pretty much she's coming to take back the world from us.
And what does that mean?
In her idea, she said exactly that. They were here first, and we're the invaders, and they're coming, and we've pretty much messed everything up, and they're coming to take the world.
Do you think
So
that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say that's what they think in their minds, these entities, because, from what they've told me, and I've talked to a lot of different ones, and some of them, the ones that you would see, like, in some of these, when they're talking to me, I didn't even know they were real until I research it and see that the name is a real thing. I wouldn't even
Mhm.
know. Like Bacchus, I had no idea who that was until I researched it and found out that it was another name for Dionysus. I had no clue. Um, so what they're trying to say is that, what we've done is kind of separate them from us, and this was their world, and we came here and, we brought our light and expanded it so far that, they have no room back in this world. It's very much a dualistic type nature that they're speaking about. And I understand it, now that I know more and I speak to them so often, I can understand their position. But they also are saying that they made contracts with the government. They're saying that they said, yes, we've made contracts with them, but they say that they're tricking them. And they said, isn't that helping you guys because we're tricking them? That's what they told me. That's
Hmm.
what they said, that we should, think about that. We're making contracts with them and tricking them because they think that they're gaining power, but actually they're coming to take, the world back. So they said to thank you for ripping holes in our environment to allow them to come more freely. So you're going to see more people getting possessed. And actually they actually target possessed people that claim to be possessed. They target those people because they know those are the types of people that can inhabit these entities, and that there's power back. If something is like thousands of years old, like what they consider like they call themselves sometimes elder gods. what you would think of as like an elder god.
Mhm.
Imagine how much strength something has if it's been around for thousands of years. And I'm not saying I believe or don't believe. I'm only going by my personal experience and what I've allowed to speak through me. So it's really interesting how they even say that, that they're contracted with the government. If they can contract with the government, why is it so far-fetched to believe that, other agencies can?
And I'm just playing devil's advocate here, no pun intended. But the thing too that I wonder about is, how can you be so sure that you're speaking to the elder gods that are saying that they're who they are, and how can you be so sure what they're saying is truthful as well?
Yeah, so from what I've experienced, because when I'm doing this, something inside, it's not like it's just me as Olivia, you know, hosting these entities. It's something bigger inside of me. That's inside everyone. You have this higher self that takes over, and that's kind of like your highest level of you. That's what I'm using to do all of this. Because it's not like I'm just, you know, allowing
Your
demons to do
physical
this.
form, yeah.
I've allowed like very high level religious figures to take over my body and speak. That's a lot in my second book. I hosted Jesus and his mother. So it wasn't just demons. It's just the fact that I can do it with anything that really surprised me. And I'm not particularly religious. I don't want anybody to think that. That's why I find it interesting that they chose somebody who used to be a dark entity as a messenger for them. So it's always like that huge duality happening in my life, that it's been such the theme of
Mhm.
what I've been experiencing, is duality of being, I consider myself a good person, but then to see myself in these past lives where I was harming people, it was really eye-opening to see that, and why I'm doing so much now to help people. Like, it's almost like trying to, atone for some of that in the past, and probably somewhere deep down, that's something that I plan to do.
Now we have about 4.5 minutes left, and I'm
Yes.
just curious, with you currently, I mean, it sounds like that you, even though you're not engaged with the government anymore,
Yes.
that you still do speak to some of these entities. Are you
Yes.
still speaking with the dark entities as well?
Yes, I do. Pretty regularly, I'll try to get my newest kind of mission is trying to get information from handlers, those individuals that are actually working for the government, because I also have these other abilities. I do something that's called talking to someone's head. That's the only way I describe it, and that's how I describe it when I'm under trance, because I don't know how else to describe it. But it's like I can talk to different parts of a person: your mind, body, soul, spirit, higher self, your different parts of your personality. So that's how I'm getting information from these handlers, is by talking to different parts of their head, their brain, and figuring out, I've been able to look at some of their records, some of the stuff they're writing, where they're living, address. It's crazy how far you can go, because I call it cyber remote viewing. It's a form of remote viewing, but way bigger. I'm using like a psychic ability to do it.
You're saying it's a mission. Who's giving you the mission?
My higher self
Okay,
and
because
my
you
father told me, yes.
okay, so they're seeing needs that you have, and they or needs that they think that you could be useful for, and they're telling you what they need your help with.
Yes. A lot of different entities or the handlers, I kind of force myself on them. I force it on them because we need this information for us. So I am taking a risk for everyone. I don't recommend anybody else try this. It's something I can do particularly. I don't want anybody else to try it, because I don't think that anybody else could accomplish it. It's an ability I have. So it is risky, because I'm, pretty much remote viewing a government handler and looking at his files and things. It's very risky.
Now we have about 2.5 2 minutes left. Linda asked the question: are you able to do you do medical readings?
I've never done any type of medical readings. I have helped a couple of people just by hosting different beings, entities, aliens, dead relatives, things like that.
Hmm. Interesting. Very
And it
interesting.
can be very scary once it starts happening. People think that it's, happy. I feel fine when I'm doing it. That's the thing. I can host a dark entity, a demon, and then after I'm done, I can push it out and I can go make a sandwich. So that's not everybody that can do that.
Do they threaten you?
They have before, but you know what? Now that they know me well, it's the point of they said that I'm a kindred spirit because I'm like them. That's why they don't harm me. I
So,
am one of them.
so you're kind of 1 foot in the dark and 1 foot in light.
Yes, duality all the way.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. What would the government do? We have about 30 seconds left, roughly. What would you do if government found out what you're doing and how you're being very vocal about all this?
They know everything.
There is no. They're just hoping
There's
that
no
people don't
hiding.
believe. They're just hoping people
Exactly.
don't
That's
believe.
what the handlers told me. They said I can say whatever I want. No one will believe me, and they're going to call me crazy. So
Yeah,
they did tell me that, and
yeah.
I knew it would come to that. But I think I would encourage people to read the books and make their own decision for themselves and research.
It's a lot. I've had people messaging me during the show, and they're just like, we don't know what to make of this.
Mhm.
And I think that's a fair assessment
Yeah,
as
of course.
well. And I think I would love to have you back on the show, and
Yeah.
we can go deeper into this if you're open to it.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, this is great, folks. And once again, the name of the book is called Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. I am currently reading it. It's written by Olivia James. We had quite the conversation tonight. We're going to hopefully get you back on soon. Olivia, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It was great. We're going to be back tomorrow with Psychic Medium, Refined Divine. If you have any more thoughts about tonight's topic, let me know, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.